summer split, we are kicking off the second half today, and with that, the race for playoffs is well and truly on. We will see if Schalke 04 can get their first 2-0 week, or if the UK underdogs XL Esports can pull off a huge upset. Hello everyone, I'm Shox, joined by VODS and by Frosk. Indeed, we have crossed the halfway mark already of the summer split. They grow up so fast.
We made it!
It's so great. Woohoo!
What have you guys done?
We've achieved a lot.
Okay.
We built synergy. Our wardrobe has improved.
I mean, come on. Can we just get a minute? Look at that suit.
Look at his shirt.
Stylish.
Look at that jacket.
Wow, unbelievable. But the focus here today, as always, is, of course, our wonderful teams. So let's pull up the standings and take a look. G2 Esports, they are back at the top as the reigning champions, and they start the second round robin in that #1 spot. Of course, Fnatic, unfortunately, dropped a couple of games as of late, which now means they share the second place with Splice, and that looks like a pretty cemented top 3 to me.
I mean, I've been here for about 9 months, and things just seem to be true. Death, taxes, and G2 Esports winning everything, and Fnatic still being at the top until you beat them in a best-of-5.
That's changed.
It's
yeah,
been
it
so much fun to watch the top of the table,
Mm-hmm.
especially this split, because it feels like that after G2 won MSI, they came back and they were still challenged by some of the top teams in Europe. And not only have they improved over the regular season, everyone below them has improved as well. And it's resulting in a very competitive split.
And I like what you were saying yesterday, VODS, about it feels at this point in European League of Legends, especially at the top end, it is so intelligent what teams are doing. It's like on a completely different level than we've ever seen. I peek in on the LPL from time to time. It's not very close right now in terms of how teams are thinking about the games. I think what our top teams are doing is absolutely phenomenal.
The one caveat I will make is Fnatic in their last 2 games. That was a little bit less than intelligent. Of course, yesterday, not saying the swap was intelligent, it's just what ended up on the Rift was maybe left a lot to be desired. They changed out Reckless. He was on the bench for 1 game, and Felix played mid while Nemesis played bot lane with Hilly, and they picked up a loss, another one versus Rogue, and there was a lot of feeding. Again, that sounded so negative.
I mean, it's
there was a lot of feeding again. Honestly, that really was, Shox.
Okay,
I agree with you.
I'm going to get flamed for saying I flame teams again. All I wanted to express is the fact that now 2 games in a row, uncharacteristically, a lot of the members like Healy, like Bwipo specifically, yesterday have just run into untimely. That's when it wasn't necessary.
It's just so strange because it feels like if you look at the first half of Summer Split, if you cut it like at the halfway point, so the quarter point, Fnatic look amazing.
Yeah.
They take that amazing game against G2. You're like, this is explosive, this is incredible. And then like their most recent chain together games have left a lot of head scratching. And while again, you will never discount Fnatic because that seems to be the ship that never fully sinks. It doesn't matter what kind of rough seas that they face. It still is kind of this big worry point of how do they finish very strong? Are they going to get themselves a really good seed going into playoffs?
I'm looking forward to seeing the return of Reckless today.
Yes.
While I don't think that if they'd ran that draft with Reckless, the game would have gone any differently.
Unless he drafts for them.
Unless he's doing their drafts. I do hope that coming into today, they put more focus and attention and perhaps show a little bit more respect towards their opposition because they can't afford to be dropping these games, especially with Splice on their heels and G2 already taking it ahead.
Also, I would say no man overboard, but we have to also look at it in the context of last split, where they also went out and didn't play a final, which for them is also very abnormal, right? And is something that they will want to rectify going into these playoffs. So I am looking closely at the games they're playing. But on the other side, Rogue beat them, of course. And I think it's fairly easy to say, oh, well, you know, Fnatic beat themselves, but you can only beat what is in front of you. And I think we can still say that Rogue is on the up and up.
I think that we're seeing a lot of really impressive things from this Rogue roster. While they're not necessarily the flashiest of teams, outside of perhaps this great play from Woolite, the team is just very intelligent in how they read the map and how they react. They know where they have pressure, they understand what the enemy is trying to do, and they do what they can to try and shut it down. I think that this team has showcased a lot of growth in terms of their teamwork so far this split, and given that we're only at the halfway point, this former ERL team is making headway, and they're on track to secure a playoff spot.
Yeah, I think it's just really important to underline that while Fnatic aren't playing their best game, this was not the case of 2 teams playing bad and 1 team just playing worse. This was 1 team misplaying and 1 team having really solid fundamental League of Legends, which is why Rogue is on the rise.
I love this balanced, level-headed analysis, but to get some real expert insight on yesterday, we're going to leave it to our armchair analysts, Drake and Dur.
Is that thing on?
Whoa, dude, what's up?
Yo, Drake, get over here.
Yo, dude, what?
Do you hear what Shock just said?
Did Shock just talk to us?
She just said our names, bro. Wait, I want to try something. Type Pepega if you can hear me right now. Nice. Nice.
All right, people, I know you've been missing some actual analysis that you haven't been getting from those
sure.
chuckleheads. So let's break it down for you. Misfits, the new Misfits, they're gonna make playoffs.
Dude, that team is so insane. They're so much better than that old roster. Like all those old names, we don't need them, right? Like now we've got Dan. This guy's so good. They've got to say his name twice, man.
Yeah.
And Soaz, bro, his name's just Paul.
And look, dude, yeah, Paul, great, right? But like Neon is so good. He's so far ahead of the curve that he's literally selling Essence Reaver to give enemy teams a chance.
Dude, what a power move out of Neon, right? But now we gotta talk about Leader, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's got all the int out of his system. You know, like those first 2 games, just ran it down, got it all over. Now he's only getting better. He's like baby
He's
Caps.
like Justin Bieber Caps.
Dude, for sure, right? But if he's baby Caps, then Nemesis is baby Caps.
What?
What?
Bro, Nemesis sucks now.
What are you talking about?
Bro, Nemesis sucks. Ever since you swapped to bot, he's been useless.
What are you talking about, dude? They didn't have Reckless. They had to make that move, man.
Bro, Reckless wouldn't have even gotten to play Sangria. It wouldn't have made a difference.
Whoa. You take that back, bro. Because look, Reckless, he has to play 2 games every week, right? Like, that's so many games. He needs a break too, man. Think about it. Olympic athletes only have to play 1 game every 4 years, bro.
That doesn't make any sense, bro.
What are you talking about?
You're not lying,
look,
bro.
Can you do this? Are you smarter than
That's
me?
not even
You think you're smarter than me?
impressive, bro.
Blindfold me, bro.
What is your
Blindfold me.
elo?
Tie
What
me
is
up.
your elo,
Tie me
bro?
up, man.
Where are you
Blindfold
at?
me. What are you thinking? What are you doing? Fnatic, you're the best, man. Come on, bro. Come on. God.
Security, I know where they are. No, I think
that was hard-hitting analysis.
No, armchair analysts right there. Twitter, Reddit, take your pick, but I think they did a fantastic job.
I think our meetings have gone too far.
Which meetings? That's Drake and Durr.
Oh,
Yeah, I love that argument. Like the Olympic athlete one was just, I never thought of that. That's a great point.
I agree. I'm going to start using that in all of my arguments. All right, back to the actual hard-hitting analysis. I mean, it's up to you if you'd rather hear that. We want to get some takeaways from the first half of the summer split, seeing how we have crossed the halfway mark, and a couple of big moments we want to think back to. I want to start with that G2 versus Fnatic game in week 3, because it kind of brings us back to what we thought about those 2 teams at that point in time, which was they're both the strongest, and Fnatic is even stronger than G2 because they beat them.
It brought us what was supposed to be an amazing bout between our 2 top teams in Europe, the MSI champions versus the undefeated Fnatic, and we expected a bloodbath. What we saw was a massacre coming out from the side of Fnatic as they absolutely ripped G2 apart. The execution was good, the early game was good, and this was the game that really cemented Broxah in the league as being insanely dominant here in Europe.
And all of the elements of this victory that Fnatic took over G2 are kind of the elements that you're still now waiting to return, and why, when these things don't line up, that Fnatic seemed to stall out. It was Hilly on probably his best Pyke performance ever. We were having this discussion. Who is the best Pyke in the LEC? And Hilly firmly closed the door on that and said, no, it's me. Broxah was popping off, and Bwipo on the Renekton up at the top side was amazing. And recently, it's, Broxah's not finding the ganks, Bwipo dying a lot in these solo lanes, and Hilly not finding those key engagements.
Yeah, indeed, and it kind of shows how now, a couple of weeks further on, the picture looks different, and we're not as convinced about Fnatic's absolute stability in that roster, what they can show. So is the main thought here, okay, it's just a little blip on the radar for them, or is there more to be worried about?
I do like what Crownshot was saying last night when we spoke about him, and he feels that Fnatic is starting to be figured out. And I think that this is something that has happened a lot with regards to Fnatic, and usually they stumble for a little while, but then they immediately recognize and they get better. So I'm hoping that identifying at this point in the split will enable us to have the G2 versus Fnatic game that many fans want, and it only sets up for a beautiful week 7 later.
Playoffs Fnatic is a different beast, and they might meet Rogue in those playoffs, because they are turning into the real, I was going to say de vrai, that's a French word, but the real dark horse of the LEC, quite unexpectedly, for me at least. Their development so far and in the last couple of weeks has been impressive, beating OG, of course, as well just last week.
I'm actually super hyped about this team.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to funnel in a little bit on Inspired in particular, because he's the guy who's really got me excited. And I'm just going to call it right now. Polish junglers and being able to play Olaf. I don't know what it is, but it's amazing. This guy is the best Olaf player I've seen, and we have Jankos in our league, but his 2 Olaf games have been popping off.
What is it about Polish junglers and playing Olaf?
I don't know.
I think you need like a language barrier before you can lock in the champion. You must speak Polish before you get to lock it down.
I know some Polish.
Oh, what?
Do you?
Let's move on.
All right. Well, the one thing I can certainly say with confidence is that this Rogue roster is only going to get better as we move into the second half of the split.
What's the X factor? Inspired?
For me, I think that it's the dual combination of Inspired and Vander. We're going to be talking a little bit more about it later in the day, but basically, it feels like that they bring a lot of game sense, and it helps identify where the team wants to play and how to execute a lot of their game plans. And I think it's so valuable in a league that just seems to have leveled up so much from what we've seen last split.
Yeah, that's the thing that I really just want to hammer home, is that Rogue are an intelligent team. You know, I think it's really easy to look at a lot of these players, not know what the ceiling is, or think that you have an expectation of what the ceiling is, and so you feel like they're probably going to be capped from breaking into the top end. But because they are so good with their instincts and their read on the map, they're able to overreach here. And now I'm just curious, what is the ceiling of this holistic Ultraliga squad?
And same question I have is for Splyce. What is their ceiling? And for me, they're also a very positive surprise. And in a different way, of course, than maybe Rogue, is that we always expected them to hover around the top of the table and make it into playoffs. But the level of consistency and the level of strategic depth they have shown in the last couple of weeks is making me think maybe there's more there. Are you convinced as well?
I think that what Splyce have showcased is that they are an insanely intelligent team, and a lot of that is thanks to Xerxes. I think that what he does in the early game is sometimes very difficult to portray, but is definitely felt by many of the other teams, and he's earned a lot of respect in the league. My big question is, what was this Splyce going to look like coming into the split? Because normally they're slow starters, and then they ramp up towards playoffs. But looking this good already at the halfway mark, I feel like that they're only going to get better from here, and the question is, can they match some of the individual talent that we have in the likes of Fnatic and G2 towards the end of the split?
I just think that Splyce are the safe bet, and it's their consistency. So I'm always betting on Splyce. Love these guys.
Yeah, they're great. And one of the guys that's been really developing is in that mid lane, Humanoid. Of course, he was new coming into the spring split, but I feel like he's really came into his own and even straight up carrying some games for Splyce, which we wouldn't had given him in spring.
For me, Humanoid was the guy that when the dominoes were set up, that he would sometimes inconsistently choose to knock them down or not at all. But recently, he's consistently making those plays. And I think it's that switch over from decreasing the variance where he's not just kind of running it down, but you're continuing to see these pop-off performances him more often, which is kind of unlocking Splyce to the next level as like their X factor.
2 more players we are going to run through who impressed us in the first half of the split. First up, Inspired. We already mentioned him, that Polish jungler, making waves, and we'll touch on it a bit later as well. But he's just been really impressive, knowing that he's only been on this highest level of play in the LEC for not very long.
When I speak to a lot of coaches and pros, what they say is that he's just got very good instincts. It's like he seems to know what the enemy is thinking and how he should react. And he's only 17 years old. I think it was I was talking to a coach and they were basically saying it's unfair that he's so young, yet he has this level of instincts already, and he's got so much potential ahead of him. So I definitely want to be keeping my eyes out on Inspired, because I was not expecting this level from him coming into the summer split.
And finally, Abadara from Schalke 04. I don't think we were extremely convinced throughout spring. Good, solid player, but you would never think, all right, you know, he's always going to do it versus any opponent. I feel like he's brought a new level of stability to his game, and it's working well, especially in the current meta.
I've always thought that when we saw Abadage kind of make his debut on the likes of Lissandra, because Schalke had a guy like Upset into the backline, if you had zone control and you were a good team fighting or control mage mid laner, that's how they would thrive. When he had transitioned into the Yasuo, that's when it kind of fumbled for me. I'm like, maybe Abadage is not my speed. But now we've seen great games on his Akali and fantastic games on his Azir. I think he's starting to really well-round himself and kind of take Schalke to the next level of, again, being a very strong team-fighting team from this control mage player.
And who knows, maybe we'll see some of these rookies at Worlds. And Worlds is coming to Europe this year, and that's why we're keeping a close eye on the international competition. Medic, tell us more.
Thank you very much, Shox. With leagues around the world ramping up towards Worlds, I cast my eyes towards Korea and the LCK this morning as Griffin faced off against Damwon Gaming with both teams tied in 3rd place. Damwon have looked pretty strong after upsetting JDG at Rift Rivals, whereas Griffin, on the other hand, have been struggling. They've lost their last 2 series in the LCK. Game 1 kicked off with Griffin taking an early lead through Tarzan ganks, leading towards a very strong bot lane and a strong dragon fight. It was Damwon Gaming who kicked off the dragon, but it was Griffin who take the win in the fight with 3 kills. However, Damwon Gaming had a strong poke siege comp with Corki, Ezreal, and Jace. We're able to keep the game pretty close in terms of gold, even taking Rift Herald because of some bad back timers coming out from Griffin. Damwon continued to slow down the game, taking 2 Ocean Dragons and then waiting for their competition to come online. This is the fight that really decided the game, though, as Beryl lands an incredible 2-man pulverize on Doran and on Viper, meaning that Damwon could take the win around the Infernal Dragon and then push the game towards a victory. In Game 2, we saw Damwon Gaming play a similar competition and then find a great fight around an Infernal Dragon once again. Griffin overextend, Chovy steps too far forward, and Showmaker is there to pick up the kills. In the end, Griffin grew impatient with Damwon stalling out the game, and we can see here Tarzan over-engages, and Damwon Gaming are there to pick up all of the kills on the back end. Damwon got a clean ace and were able to take the series 2-0. Now, what I have seen a little bit recently is actually in the past, it was Western teams that copied Korea, but this play, Viper blast coning into his demise reminded me a lot of a play I saw in the LCS just last week. FlyQuest's Wild Turtle takes the blast cone straight onto a Caitlyn trap, and it seems like now Korea have decided they want to copy the West. Now, Damwon Gaming definitely looked like a team to watch coming into Worlds as they are now tied at the top of the LCK. However, Griffin, or as Twitch chat knows them, the greatly reluctant fighters, need to turn things around rapidly if they don't want to repeat the mistakes of 2018.
Thank you for that. What a wonderful breakdown. The times really are changing. So are we excited about possibly seeing Damwon at Worlds?
Yes, I think one of the cool things that we've been seeing is there are actually a lot of young talent that have come together, and in spring they kind of fell apart towards the middle of the split, but in summer they seem to have learned a lot more about how to play the game and how to play the map, and they're evolving a lot. So they have raw mechanics and they're getting smarter. So that's why they look good. They could potentially be scary, but I mean, we're Europe after all, so what are we got to be afraid of, right?
Yeah. On that note, let's take a look at the schedule of Europe of the LEC as we are kicking off the 2nd round robin just today. When we were speaking about the schedule earlier, Vedius, you said there's no possibility for upsets. Everything's going to go exactly as planned. So tell me then, who are the winners of each of these games?
Schalke, Rogue, Origin, Fnatic, G2. That's expected to be the day, but every time I think the day is cut and dry, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. It never is. I'm always wrong. That's why I suck at predictions.
I like how you went like easy peasy and then you had to go for the full lemon.
Yeah.
You couldn't just leave it.
Wait, you can't say easy peasy and not lemon squeezy.
I mean, it's
Come on.
It's easy peasy.
Frosk, lemon squeezy. Let's take a look at the predictions.
It was a good try.
Oh my gosh. So it's pretty boring. Everyone voted the same.
Yep.
I'm doing the best out of everyone standing here.
See, everyone agrees with me. It's predictable today.
I tried to change at the last second to SK over Fnatic. I'll say that on air. Sorry, Fnatic. But it was too late and I'm locked in.
I was going to do it yesterday when they were up versus Rogue, but I was at the hive mind, man. I was like, Fnatic will win.
Fnatic just whispers into you, like, remember, we're always here. We always do well.
And I was tweeting and whatever. Well, anyway, an announcement to make is also that Medic is currently in the lead. He is the superior analyst. Congratulations. Come on, Andy. Clap. Woo!
No,
clap, Andy.
I will never clap. When he beats me, then I'll clap.
I mean, if he beats you for 2nd place.
Like, we tied last split, I'll have you know.
All right. Well, in our last game of the day, we also have a really intense fight, one that should get everyone jumping up out of their seats. G2 versus Splyce. 1st place versus 2nd.
So now let's go to the Splyce questions. Give me just 1 second to watch the game to see where...
I think they lost, but that's just me.
Oh, the game is still going.
Jumping in, Cersei here, Boxer, there's nothing you can do.
Uses the stopwatch, but there is no way out.
Knocked him down, but he's gonna dash out! Oh, it was so close! Tommy roots him up, and look at Keanu off towards the side.
Splyce have beaten Origin, now they've beaten Fnatic as well. G2 is the last team standing in front of them.
I think G2 is better than Fnatic. I think it's gonna be way harder than this week.
So Splice always like been a bit underrated. I always look at them as like middle pack, but they always do like a bit better than that. But they never like challenge for the throne.
For G2, it's easy to look past competition because they've got their eyes set on Worlds, but they cannot lose sight of how important these regular season matches are, of how important it is to lock a first or a second seed as soon as possible.
I mean, I feel pretty confident going up against Splice.
I love that Splice played a controlled game of League of Legends. I love that they get better and better at playing what people would call textbook. I want to see more creativity, and I want to see them fight fire with fire. And I want to see the most explosive early game we've ever seen.
I don't think they're that standard. They're playing Kiana right now, which not many teams play, so I would say they have their niches. They're mostly like jungle mid-ranked, so I don't want to disrespect them.
When you play against G2, if you go into the game thinking that they are better than you or that they are the scary team, you already lost the game. Even though Jankos and Caps are a really strong duo.
Wait, does he walk into it? Oh my god!
I'm sure that we can handle them.
Yeah, it's up for my mid-jungle to not run it down, I guess.
I think this is a chance for Splice to prove themselves that they can go toe-to-toe when it comes to aggressive League of Legends that decides games.
So many doubted them, but Splice proved they're amongst the best in the LEC.
I want to play a good matchup against them and just smash them.
Oh, the giant rookie.
The chance to get into Worlds is the most important factor.
I feel pretty confident we can take them.
We are going to take down G2 with our best champions.
What a matchup. Last game of the day, match of the week. Splice versus G2, and a chance to wipe all of the doubts about Splice away if they win over G2 and take that #1 spot. Also important to note is that there is a new tiebreaker rule, which says that games in the second half matter more than in the first half. If a game record and head-to-head is tied, the next tiebreaker is wins in the second half. So seeing how G2 beats Splice, if now Splice beats G2, that would be very good for them going into the standings.
Yep, and it'll increase their chances of securing a top 2 spot at the end of the season as well. So this game holds a lot of weight for Splice if they're able to find a win against the current Titans of G2.
That it does.
I was just going to say early game predictions. I actually think Kiana will be really exciting for this one. I feel like she's a bit of a trap, though, because G2 haven't been able to play it. It's always banned against them. We've already seen that Splice can play it. I think that they can probably flex it around everywhere. So I think it's going to be who's going to play chicken with the Kiana.
Well, speaking of the Kiana, we all know she's pretty OP, but exactly how does she work? We sent VODS to investigate the matter.
I would say watch and learn, but unfortunately, you cannot learn this.
Hey everyone, my name's VODS, and today we're going to be looking at some cool tips and tricks for you Kiana players at home that want to try and get better and better understand the champion. So without further ado, let's jump into it. As we jump into the practice tool, you'll notice that right now I have no elements. You can see that each hit does about 43 damage at level 6, right? We're going to pick up a water element, and you'll notice that you just get a small amount of bonus damage off the back of holding onto one of these elements just passively. So it's always extra valuable for helping with last hitting and just giving you a bit of extra damage overall. The main element that you want to be sitting on for the laning phase is the water one. The main reason for this is it provides you with an extra bit of CC. It's really useful for setting up your own combos in lane, which we'll talk a little bit about later. So one of the basic lane combos that we talked about a little bit earlier on is the utilization of the water element to root a target up. Now, the great thing is if you use your Q with your E together, you're able to guarantee the Q landing, so you can guarantee a root. You do the EQ combo to root, reset, land the auto, Q again. And that gives you a nice amount of burst damage. It's very effective in the trades. You can pick and choose which element you choose to use in the second half, but if they're below 50% health, always try to get that earth element in because you do extra damage to low health targets. So now we've showcased some of the basic laning trades. I wanted to showcase one of the big burst combos that you're available to do on Kiana. You start with the EQ, land an auto, you get the earth element, you ult, and then you finish them with the Q. If you want, you can throw an ignite in there as well. This will do a lot of damage very early on into the game. It's a high amount of burst and works best when paired up with a jungler or when the enemy target is very low HP. Now that we've covered some of the basic burst combos of Qiyana, I wanted to show you some of the cool tips and tricks that you can use when moving through things like the jungle. One of the most important is that her W can be used to jump over a lot of terrain, and it's surprising the things that you can actually jump over given the W's range. One of the impressive ones is here near the Gromp wall. You can actually jump over this one. You can also do the same thing here. These really thick walls, you can't necessarily get over all of them, but at the corners of edges, you can actually jump over these. You can jump over these as well. Things like the back of the Baron and Dragon Pits are also relatively easy to get over with the W. So one of the other cool things about Qiyana is that her E is actually a fixed distance. This means that if you're at close range to certain targets, you can actually utilize these targets to get over other walls and obstacles. And so that's just an extra tool in your kit available to you to help move through the jungle. That does it for a lot of the tips and tricks I'm here to show you about Qiyana. There's still a lot more to understand about this very complex champion. I'm looking forward to our pros to show us a little bit more. But for me, that's going to be it. So we're going to send it back to Shox.
I was gonna say supreme display of talent from VODS, but he messes that up right at the end.
They won't let me do the finish line. They won't let me do the take again.
No, wonderful, wonderful breakdown.
She's a really cool champion,
super
very
cool
complicated.
Champion. Also, not just the abilities, just the whole personality and the character around it. She's awesome. And maybe we'll see some Qiyana today. I definitely hope so. And maybe even in our first game. Excel and Schalke 04 are first up on stage. And, well, Schalke played versus a Vitality Qiyana yesterday, but they still managed to win. So they're looking for their first 2-0 week. Now, coming into this matchup, I wanted to take a look at the jungle specifically, because I think we all know how important Trick has been to the development of this Schalke roster. And he's up versus Kadril.
And it's not just Trick, it's also Kadril on the other side. I think it was like 2 weeks ago that Kadril was the only player that had 100% kill participation, because nothing happens for Excel without this guy involved. Now, Kadril is also one of our other Olaf players, and I just think that if Kadril can get a very aggressive early game jungle matchup, he's definitely going to need it to compete with Trick, who is so good at controlling Schalke's early game and just shutting out opponents.
I think this guy is so important in terms of the early game for his team, largely because Trick, with how he's been working with Abadage recently, has been a big shift in not only the development of Abadage, but also just the early game playmaking from Schalke. So I think that that'll be the duo for me to keep your eyes on. And with regards to Kadril, I think his focus will be very much on the bot side of the map, because ever since the introduction of that duo, it feels like Excel have only gotten better.
Yeah, I really like Mystique and Jessica playing down there, but my thing is like, while I agree with Abadage and Trick, I'm all about the Ignar in Trick. I think the classic roam style is great when Ignar gets involved with this guy.
Indeed, and we see both bot lanes here in action, because this is what it could come down to. What can both these junglers facilitate in each of the lanes? We have seen that there's been more jungle attention in the bot lane when it's Jeskla and Mystique's playing on the side of Excel. And on the other hand, there's Trick, who is always very high in the jungle proximity lane. It also has the most kills and assists, or the second most kills and assists at 15 minutes. So we can expect a very explosive early game overall.
And for me, I am leaning more towards Mystique's. I love how proactive he's been, especially on that Tahm Kench, to go aggressive when they faced SK Gaming. I think that there seems to be very practiced duos for Mystique's and Jessica down there comparatively to Hjarnan and Kasing, but I'm curious if Excel will continue to experiment with them. For now, I really like seeing some of the rookie talent take the stage in the LEC.
Yeah, I think that ever since their introduction, they're just very aggressive. They love to fight you. We saw it yesterday against G2 that ultimately led to their downfall, but with that, it gives Kadril a lane that he can easily play around and look to try and force plays through in the early game. So I'm expecting a lot of action down towards the bot side of the map, and I'm curious as to how Trick will look to try and answer.
Yeah, Excel is always good at forcing that early game. The problem they have is closing it out. Do you think they'll be able to do it versus Schalke?
I mean, it's trying to get over that mid-game hump that Excel have really struggled with. I think if they play a fairly easy-to-execute composition, because they struggle when they aren't grouped up as 5.
Because, I mean, as much as I'd like to say easy competition, the problem is they rely so much on grouping as a 5-man unit, the better teams seem to exploit them every time they try to do it. So we'll see if they've been able to overcome it as we move into the second half. But right now, my favorites are Schalke coming into this, and they're looking for their first 2-0 week.
Yeah, can they get that 2-0? Time to find out, and time to kick off the second and deciding half, because that's how that works, of the LEC Summer Split. Let's hit the riff.
Thank you very much, Shox. I'm Medic, this is Ender. Together we are Mender, and we are here to bring you Excel versus Schalke. A little bit of a weird flex, but okay, Ender, good job. You can solve a Rubik's Cube. Congratulations on that.
That makes me a smart analyst.
Is that how it works?
According to Drake and Durr, it does.
Oh, good old Drake and Durr. They actually, that's the most hard-hitting analysis I've ever heard. And I work with VODS and with you and Frosk, so I guess that makes sense.
Look, they're just not willing to say the edgy statements, you know? They're not willing to make that bold call.
Well, we'll see if any bold calls are made in this game. XL facing off against Schalke. XL sitting at 1-8 at the moment, struggling at the bottom of the standings. And soon you have to start to think they need to pick up these wins.
Exactly, right? This is the second half of the split, starting right here for XL. Currently sitting 3 games out of playoffs against teams